Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review. This movie is a drama from Austria, German language English subs, released in the year 2001, directed by Ulrich Seidel, and this film is called Dog Days. So Dog Days is set during a heatwave in Austria. It's said to be the two hottest days of the year, and we're going to learn a little bit about the residents of a suburban neighbourhood. So we have an elderly man whose wife passed away and is now being looked after by a carer, who is very inappropriate with. He also likes to complain about his neighbours, and he also likes to weigh his groceries because he believes he's been ripped off by a supermarket owner. So it's a very strange life he's leading, and we get to know a little bit about that. We also learn about some women who are being treated horribly by their partners, and they're stuck in a vicious cycle of domestic violence that they're trying desperately to get out of. And we also follow the life of a very innocent woman who likes to hang around the supermarket and ask strangers if she can ride in their car to get to know a little bit about them. So as each character unfolds, their life is going to go through a set of unfortunate circumstances. That's something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Dog Days. I was very excited to see this movie. Now, this was Ulrich Seidel's first feature film, and it's his movie that has the most accolades. And so Ulrich Seidel is a director that I appreciate, but he's not a director I'm completely won over by, because I definitely feel as though he's a little bit too pretentious. But he's a very interesting filmmaker in the way that he actually documents his movies. These are documentations of characters that are actually real life. They're not so much movie characters. And so it's almost like observational commentary on society and suburbia, and stuff that can be very boring, but he makes it interesting in a way that's very unnerving. So he captures the ugliness of humanity. He captures everything that's anti-warmth, anti-positivity, and just makes it really dreary and downbeat and very cruel. And so the behaviours that the characters have with each other in his other movies, I thought, were actually quite nasty. And so that's something that a lot of people are going to be put off by. But that, for me, is something I appreciate, is that he's daring to show life in a very bold way. It's something that's not promising a sugar-coating ending, and a lot of people like sugar-coated endings because it gives them hope about their lives. But this is a movie that actually shows you what happens when your life goes the other way. And so that's something that I appreciate about Dog Days. This is a very nasty film. It's a very hard movie to watch because of the behaviour, especially behaviour towards women. Women are very much objectified in this film, and they're treated absolutely horrendously. And in today's world, a lot of people are very afraid to actually document that, but this is a movie that does go all the way as far as showing you cruelty. And that cruelty is intensified through the monotony that the movie has. This is set in everyday suburbia. It's not set in a monster's lair. It's actually set in a home. It's a home that could be your next door neighbour. And this is how a lot of people get away with this, because on the outside it seems like everyday suburbia, but on the inside, people hide their feelings. The people hide what they're actually doing. And this is how this happens every day. And so it happens right under our noses, and it's definitely a documentation of that. So it's an observational filmmaker, but he's observing really nasty and really cruel behaviours. And so Dog Days is a very cruel film and a very hard movie to watch. But I also found myself giggling quite a few times. And that was something very strange, because the humour that this movie has evolves into something that's quite shocking. So you have a smile on your face, but fairly soon that smile starts to go, and then you feel very guilty for laughing in the first place. And so he puts you in a very, very uncomfortable position, because then you feel guilty. And so it constantly happens. And so this movie, it promises something that's warmth, but when you get to the destination, it's actually quite cold. And so Ulrich Seidel is very well known for doing that. And I definitely felt that in Dog Days. This is a movie that the characters were very ugly. Their motivations, towards each other were very, you always felt as though something else was on the agenda. Their motives, what were they really doing? You feel as though they're having warm interactions, but I always felt as though there was a reason for that warm interaction, and that reason has something sinister behind it. And so this is a film that it just feels very fly on the wall, very static camera work, very similar to Michael Haneke, where you actually feel like you're eavesdropping into someone's day-to-day life, but that day-to-day life is actually very cruel, but also very darkly humorous as well. So if you're easily offended, Dog Days is definitely not for you. But if you like your European cinema and you like your very different and quirky filmmakers, Ulrich Seidel's Dog Days is definitely one to check out, and I would check out his other movies as well. But unfortunately, Dog Days does possess something that I don't like about this director, and that is pretentious. I felt as though this movie was different, but it was reveling in its difference to a point where it started to get a little bit stale. It goes for 2 hours, and it needed a little bit of theatrics thrown in there. Yes, it's very interesting to see people doing horrible things to each other, because on the outside it just seems like everyday life. But after a while, I started to look at my watch, because it interweaves between people. And so you're getting to know a little bit about this woman who's treated horribly by her husband. You get to know about this man who's actually being quite inappropriate towards his carer, this woman who's driving around in the cars. And then it goes from story to story, but it just doesn't really evolve and doesn't really go anywhere. Yes, the set of unfortunate circumstances are coming, but unfortunately, I just didn't really care as much. It's because after a while, you start to feel as though there's a little bit of a hollow feeling in this. And now, yes, that may have been deliberate. It may have been monotonous for a very good reason. And that was the whole point of the film. But unfortunately, as far as a theatric, as far as wanting to watch a movie, I just felt as though I didn't want to watch a real life documentation. I kept feeling as though this movie was going to go to somewhere that it never really goes to. And so it was quite boring. And I felt as though there was a lot of element to this movie that was very interesting, very intriguing, and very capable, but unfortunately it's not self-aware as far as making a movie, as far as pushing itself forward. For 2 hours, you need something a little bit more than just going from story to story in a very blasé way. And so it just doesn't really have any real meaning and any real sort of punch in that what is this movie all about? These characters don't really have anything to do with each other. It's just basically a demonstration in ugliness and how cruel human beings can be to each other, but I just didn't feel as though there was any driving force behind it. It was just going around in circles, and now, yes, that is the vicious cycle of abuse, but unfortunately, as far as the movie is concerned, just needed a few theatrics thrown in there to really captivate me from start to finish. So it really outstays its welcome. It does become quite tedious, and that's why I don't share the love that Dog Days has. But if you are into movies that are very different, I would suggest going out to see it, but if you don't have a high attention span, you're not going to enjoy this at all. So it's a director that really splits you down the middle, and it's definitely a film that splits you down the middle. There's some things I liked about it, but unfortunately, the majority of it I just didn't really care for. So overall, for Dog Days, going to give this one 2 stars. I don't share the love, but if each to their own. If you did, then good for you. But for me, if I'm being brutally honest, I just don't see all the praise that this movie gets. All right, guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.